everybody. I am Rahman Deary, and I'll be going through my project 2, and I'll be doing an overview slash walkthrough of the app itself, and then I'll be doing an explanation of the code. Yeah. Okay, moving on. I will begin this app. Here we have a welcome page. It has a brief welcome message with a nice image of food and brief explanation of how to navigate it for the users. And yeah, now we have the recipes: spaghetti, pasta, salad, soup. We have the timer fragment. We can start. We can pause. We can start it again if we need. And if we need, reset. For your resting and whatnot. We can rate recipes. Here in the individual recipes themselves, they have the ingredients, the instructions. We can start a timer for them. Pause it, reset it. We can, you see, each of them have their own instructions and whatnot. We can rate the recipes. Yeah, that's an overview of my application. And moving on to the coding portion of this assignment, I'd like to start with main activity. So in this portion of main activity here, as you can see, it receives an intent and it checks for extra called show fragment. If this extra indicates timer, then the app loads timer fragment, or if it similarly shows feedback, it then loads feedback fragment. This setup ensures that when a user clicks the start recipe or the rate recipe, they are taken to the correct fragment, and the fragment will allow for convenience when you click those buttons. Moving on, we have the bottom navigation view. This handles the intent, and as you can see here, the set on item selected listener method listens for a tab selected, allowing for us to switch between fragments like home fragment, recipe fragment, timer fragment, feedback fragment, and it displays them in the fragment container. So this updates the display fragment based on the tab selected and makes it easier for everybody to switch between them. And below we have the load fragment. This method is a helper function that takes in the fragment and replaces the current one with the fragment container and ensures more smooth transition between fragments. Now moving on, I'd like to move to the recipe details. This portion, when you click on a recipe in the recipe tab, it opens up the recipe detail activity. This activity receives data like title, image, ingredients, instructions, all through the intent. And inside the recipe detail activity, we display the details of the recipe, and two main buttons are here: the start recipe button and the rate recipe button. Here we have the code that receives the data from the intent, the title, image, resource ID, ingredients, instructions, the time, and then it sets the data into the responsive UI components to then display the recipe details. These buttons these allow for when users are navigating back to the main activity, passing specific data for loading different fragments. For example, the start recipe button sends the recipe name and time to the main activity, then loads the time fragment for this information. The recipe, uh, uh, the rate recipe button works similarly, but for a feedback fragment instead. And now, moving on from this part, I want to delve into the timer fragment. This timer fragment. Now, first, this fragment is responsible for displaying the countdown timer with controls for starting, pausing, resetting, and it receives the data about the recipe from the bundle that main activity passes when it loads this fragment. So first, in the onCreateView method, we retrieve the displayed recipe name and set up the initial timer configuration, as you can see. And the fragment also includes start, pause, and reset buttons to control the countdown timer. These buttons each call different methods: start timer, pause timer, reset timer, format timer. So start timer method initiates the countdown using Android's countdown timer, as you can see. Every second on tick updates the countdown text and countdown progress based on the remaining time. When the timer finishes, it resets the display. So if the timer is running, start timer won't initiate the countdown to avoid like the conflicts. And here the pause timer method stops the timer without resetting it, and reset timer completely stops the timer to the default duration, as you can see. And finally, for the last one, the format timer, it converts the remaining milliseconds, the format from milliseconds to seconds, making it more readable and enhancing the readability of the project. And then lastly, I want to talk a little bit about, here. The feedback fragment. This lets users rate their recipes and leave comments. This fragment includes a rating box and a rating bar, and text input field and a submission button. In this file, we capture the rating and feedback text, and could potentially use this data to save feedback for future use. And we're pretty short on time, so it wasn't the most thorough, but I tried my best. I think I did a very good job on this project. I'm very proud of how it came out, and I did try to make it as pretty difficult, but yes, this is my project 2, the cooking class assignment. Thank you for listening. I'm Muhammad Diri. Have a good day.